This is a case that I've named the person Alice. That's not her name, and there's a few details changed. In particular, the complexity of some of the work. I just haven't gone into the weeds with that. This is a 54-year-old woman, 5'8" tall, dancer, yoga teacher, very much fits the mainstream idea of beautiful. She's got wider shoulders and a combination of strength and beauty that is challenging to many less evolved people in male bodies. She's involved in as a practitioner with breath work and a teacher of it, and was also getting myofascial massage while I worked with her, all of which I think helped greatly because she moved very quickly through a lot of very deep stuff. What's the presenting problems, the issue as it's called? She had mostly abusive boyfriends and one abusive husband. She was divorced, had 2 teenage children. And she, her night job was mixing drinks in a swanky restaurant. And it was a restaurant where everybody had to wear a suit, male suit. And the supervisor was always giving her a hard time, and the rest of the guys in the restaurant were always giving her a hard time. And I tell you that because I want you to see how much that got transformed. This is a quote from an email where she describes what was being released, starting to come up and be released in the body work. She says, "What I have been emotionally releasing have been emotions due to all of the times I have been beaten, knocked down, thrown across the room, attempted drowning, etc. I think you get the picture. I don't think I have ever fully acknowledged how often this has happened. Half of these instances involved strangers. Yesterday, I realized that aside from the molestation when I was young, all of these instances have involved a man getting in my face, trying to dominate me, and I shove them or tell them to, quote, F off." And then she just writes the word BAM in capital letters, which means she got shoved, slugged, or something. So that's the picture. The initial phase of this is what it is for any kind of work of this kind: building trust, building rapport, teaching EFT, bronze, silver level stuff, tapping on some globals. So the first thing that happened in this process was a set of, again, ongoing work with trust, rapport, all that stuff, especially because I'm a man and this is a woman. Right. So Dad was abused by a Boy Scout leader. Mom was sexually abused by her stepfather, who also became overly familiar and was groping Alice herself at 3 and 4 years old. Mm-hmm. So, and then Alice herself was not only groped by her step grandfather, but she was, there was an attempted and unsuccessful rape from an older teenage boy, a friend of her brother's. And so, my first goal here is to release these family loyalties, is to get somewhere with the ancestral anchors, because these are movements like, I'll suffer it with you, I'll suffer it for you. This is what happens in our family. This is my ticket for belonging to our family system, is to have this kind of life. So that's the family constellation aspect of it. The personal trauma work, I don't think would have gone so well or so quickly otherwise. Gold level EFT then took place in the context of, and I'm simplifying a little bit here, 3 personified parts or aspects of Alice. And what I would do, this was a remote client too, she would set up 3 pillows because she was a yoga person and sat on the floor. Otherwise it would be chairs. And, in one of the chairs is Alice. If you think of a triangle, in one of the bottom right-hand corner of the triangle is Alice, the outer person. At the apex of the triangle is Ranger. And these are names that actually the client gave to these personality parts. Ranger is this angry rebel. Shell is this 6 and 7 year old that was 3 to 6 and 7 that was groped and suffered the attempted molestation. Ranger came right around puberty because the client was Alice was put in a posh boarding school in Switzerland with all sorts of snotty people, and really started these violent responses. She was an outsider, a newcomer, and she just was not, and plus there was all this leftover anger. Mm-hmm. So you can see immediately with this breakout of parts that it's Shell that's attracting the predators, and it's Ranger that's raging at them and getting herself, beat up. Right. So once I've got relationships between these two and we can sit them on different pillows, for Shell, we tapped on the fondling from, we did gold level, tell the story EFT on the fondling from mom's, the step grandfather. Mm-hmm. And then the attempted rape on herself, none of which she was able to talk to her parents about, ever. But that's where gold level EFT is like, it's perfect. And it's classic Gary, Tina Craig, tell the story stuff, or do a movie technique to start, and you know what I mean, some distancing and things like that.
Absolutely.
For Ranger, we tapped on some crucial instances of her raging in boarding school, which leads obviously to these, just absolutely exploding when men are trying to dominate her. Mm-hmm. And Alice, we tapped on two things. One is her frustration with these two inner people, which is big. I mean, they've dragged her around. They've damaged her life a lot. So, and I find this constantly, that the outer manager sort of person who's trying to live, that, it often has to just say to these others, I'm worn out with you. I've had it. I don't know what to do. And what I'm trying to do is, in addition to the tapping, is develop empathy between these parts. Yes. And then we tapped on a couple of we did tell the story on some of the beatings that happened during adult life. I'm ritualistic about this. I'm telling them, if you're sitting in one pillow, you speak in the first person. You don't say, this one feels this. You respect one another. You invite one another. And the movement in space and this ritualized, I say, we're just playing dolls. It's a kid's game. Yeah. Just a kid's game. Just play along. And what I'm trying to do is establish a sense of these parts, these personality, these aspects, so that they actually, outside of the sessions, the Alice knows, oh boy, here comes Ranger. Right? Mm-hmm. And can actually do some on-the-spot mitigation of those feelings. Okay, and so the outcome of this work was just super. I knew we had hit pay dirt when I got on Skype, or no, it was Zoom, I think, with Alice at one point, and she said, I've totally transformed my work environment. Mm-hmm. I went up to, I'm a little fuzzy on a couple of the details. This was a couple of years ago, but she says, I walked in and I went up to my supervisor and I was really sweet to him, and I actually gave him a big hug. And from that point on, he was my buddy. He protected me. And pretty soon, all these other guys that had been, antagonistic towards her or problematic for her or coming on to her in different ways, she became like the protected favorite of this whole batch of males. Mm-hmm. And what she had done was take her, her imposing strength and her real beauty, right? And all of a sudden be able to use these to form her life the way it needed to be formed, instead of being trapped in this thing of, yeah, I'm beautiful, I'm scary to guys, and that's always worked terribly against me. Yeah. All of a sudden, it was working for her. I'm still in contact with her, obviously, and it really has changed her life. I think that, the success of this in part is clearing the inherited trauma is a biggie. It's part of it. Gold level EFT is gold. It's pure gold, I think. It's an excellent method. And then I'm also a big fan of this personification of, in serious cases, this personification of the parts that have lived through a given period and are holders of certain intrinsic memories that are repressed and so on. Mm-hmm. So that's a quick run through.